Hello, thanks for joining me for this lecture on the Titans and the origins of the Greek gods. Before I get started walking through the timeline of that, I just really want to emphasize how very different the conception of gods and religion was at this point in history. For one thing, there's no religious hierarchy of people who are setting rules, who are setting, the practices for worshiping. Um, Nor is this tradition part of a text, for instance, that lays out the ways that people should morally be acting to each other. So um, instead, we have a very different conception of gods who are very human, right? So I want you to notice that as we go through here, that these gods are they have a lot of faults, and they can um, really be tricky and harsh and jealous and very, very, very human in their interactions. And they live among humans, which is super important to think about because at the end, we're going to get to Zeus, and Zeus becomes this father figure, this omnipotent, omniscient father figure who looks down on people and punishes the wicked, rewards the good to a certain extent. But keep in mind, he could be living and walking amongst you along with the other gods. So, in the beginning, there were primordial forces or gods slash elements, and this is very typical to a lot of creation stories across cultures. In this case, we have chaos, we have Gaia, which is earth, we have Eros, which is love, and Tartaros, which is this place of torment in the underworld. The very first beings that we have are the Titans. So these are giants who descended from Gaia and Uranus, from earth and sky. Again, very typical kind of mythology. And this is an image of Titan Oceanus because there are no images of earth and sky. They're too giant. Um, so Kronos. So Uranus is unhappy with some of his offspring, and he imprisons them in Tartaros. Gaia asks Kronos to help free her children by castrating. So Kronos overthrows his father. Uranus also sometimes uh, with the different spelling, so you might see that. And the Titans are confined to Tartarus. And you can kind of see the scale here and how epically huge they are. Cronus's wife, Rhea, gives birth to the Olympic gods Zeus, Hera, Poseidon, Hades, Hestia, and Demeter. Kronos receives a prophecy that he will be overthrown by his own children. So, of course, he eats them, like he would. Um, for one thing, he can't just destroy them because they're also gods. So, Rhea sneaks him a stone in the place of Zeus, and then she hides Zeus on Crete so he can grow up safely. The Titanocemy is one of the big epic battle stories in Greek culture, and this is when Kronos is forced to regurgitate his children, and they fight the Titans in the Titanocemy. So these stories didn't just hatch in the minds of the Greeks. So there's a lot of ties back to older mythology. For instance, the Rig Veda. The myth of the Titans may come from stories in the ancient Near East, such as the Vedas. And for instance, Zeus's name is probably certainly tied back to a name which is pulled from the Rig Veda. So the basic information for this lecture comes from Catherine McClymonds' lectures, Great Mythologies of the World from the Great Courses. And thank you for joining me.